Hey everybody, Joseph Rothschild here, aka Mono Bluetron, back with another episode of 10-Minute Testing. So, about a week ago, I got a request to do anything with the Gimmick Puppet archetype, which, if you don't know already, is a subset of monsters that I guess are supposed to be like edgy fairy tale creatures. Now, the majority of them are way underpowered, but by using some of the good ones and a Machina engine, I think we've come up with an almost playable rank 8 deck. So let's jump into deck edit and I'll show you what I'm playing. So here's the list. I've been lovingly calling this deck Gimmick Puppet Machina rank 8 because I'm not very creative. As always, before I give you an in-depth explanation of each individual card, I want to tell you what I expect the deck to do and why I chose the archetypes I did. Now, first of all, for those of you who don't know, Gimmick Puppet is a series of machine-type monsters that all do... oh geez, just completely random things. It's an archetype used by one of the anime characters, and like all anime archetypes, has a lot of cards that are very good in a singular circumstance that works out in the anime, but not so well in real life where you have to worry about things like consistency. So, what's important to understand about the Gimmick Puppets is they rely on like really busted draws more than anything else, and we've engineered a deck that tries to circumvent that weakness as much as possible. I haven't included a whole bunch of their sort of smoothing out 4-star monsters, things like the Scissors or the Humpty Dumpty, just because I don't really want to be spending my turn summoning a 4-star monster that doesn't do anything. It's slow and liable to get us killed. So, when examining the Gimmick Puppets, I started to think, what am I actually going to be able to do with them? Well, I need a way to get them into the graveyard quickly, so that Dreary Doll can get her effect, and I need a way to spam as many of them as possible. So, what I came up with was a card that I didn't know existed called Gearspring Spirit, which can be special summoned if you have only machine monsters in your graveyard. It also has the ability to target a monster an opponent controls and make its attack 0 until the end phase. This sets up OTKs, which is fine for this deck, but more importantly, it is a free special summoned 8 body that you can get almost anytime you want. Additionally, because they're all machines, they work very well with the Machina stuff. So I've included 3 copies of Machina Gear Frame in order to add Machinas to our hand, 3 copies of Machina Fortress, the, of course, good one, and 3 cards of another card I wasn't super familiar with, Machina Cannon. This card can be special summoned by sending any machines from your hand to the graveyard and then gains 800 attack for each one you sent. It is really good because it helps you send things like Dreary Doll and then special summon itself. The rest of these cards are draw spells that work really well with the archetype. 3 Trade-In is never particularly dead when you're playing about 17 8-star monsters. 3 Junk Puppet allows us to recycle our small number of Gimmick Puppets as much as possible, and of course we are playing some cards that are just good on their own. So let's jump into the individual card choices. First, we've got 3 copies of Gimmick Puppet Nightmare. This is the card that I hate the most, and also the first one I would cut incidentally. You can special summon this card by tributing an Xyz monster you control, and if you do that, you can special another Gimmick Puppet Nightmare from your hand or graveyard. This ends up not being particularly good because it then has the clause that you can't special summon anything but Gimmick Puppets for the rest of the turn, and getting a Nightmare in your hand and graveyard is not actually as easy as it sounds. However, it's a rank 8, good for trade-in, good for allure, and in a pinch, it is a Gimmick Puppet. 3 copies of Gimmick Puppet Magnet Doll. This card is actually incredible. If your opponent has a monster and all you have are Gimmick Puppet monsters, something that happens a whole lot of the time, you can special him from your hand. Note he does not say Xyz or not, so if you've made a Gimmick Puppet Xyz, you can special summon Magnet Doll. 3 copies of Dreary Doll, the heart and soul of the deck. You can banish a Gimmick Puppet from your graveyard to special summon her from the graveyard, but unfortunately she can only be used, and it is Xyz material for a Gimmick Puppet Xyz monster. More on that in a second. 3 copies of Gearspring Spirit, as always, good to special summon a rank 8 monster for free. 3 copies of Machina Cannon, kind of similar, but also allows us to fill up our graveyard. 3 copies of Machina Fortress, a very good backup plan, just because this card is particularly powerful, also enables a bunch of plays by allowing us to send Gimmick Puppets to the graveyard, and 3 Machina Gear Frame to get whichever part of this we're missing out of our deck. 3 copies of Allure of Darkness, so we can send these extra copies of Nightmare and extra Gimmick Puppets back to our banish zone in exchange for cards. 3 copies of Pot of Desires because I hear this card's all right. 3 trade-ins because all our monsters are rank 8. 3 Junk Puppets because we have a lot of puppets. 1 Upstart, 1 Raigeki, 1 Foolish, 1 Vanities, and the Solemn Suite. In the extra, we have a 7 Sins, a Pain Gainer to go into that 7 Sins, a Lancelot to go into that Pain Gainer, and then a bunch of rank 8s. We're playing a Zombie Stein, 2 Galaxy Eyes Full Armor, 1 Gimmick Puppet Destiny Leo, 2 Normal Cypher, 2 Hope Harbinger, Titanic Buster, Blader, Blaster, Bister. This is the guy that I expect to go into the most. 1 Hyretic Sun Dragon Overlord of really long names, 1 Gimmick Puppet of Strings, 1 Felgrand, and 1 Giant Grinder. So let's jump into the games and see what happens. So our first matchup is up against Red Eyes, a deck that is not, no, it's not good. Thankfully, we're going first, which means as long as we can make any kind of play that interrupts any Red Eyes Insight shenanigans, we should be in the clear. We have a pretty bad opener here, but we also have Pot of Desires. Is that a Hitler mustache? Jesus Christ. All right, so on our turn, we're going to fire off this Pot of Desires as fast as possible, draw a bunch of cards, and wouldn't you note it, there is a Machina Cannon and a Gear Spring Spirit. So this cannon is going to send the Fortress to summon itself, then we'll summon the Gear Spring Spirit, and I figure probably the best option here is to just go into Hope Harbinger and wait. We have a Vanity set, which is kind of the best course of action. Our opponent has a whole bunch of nothing. This Breakthrough skill could be problematic, but it'll at least take a turn to set up, and he'll take some damage for it. We draw a Foolish Burial, which allows us to set up a Gimmick Puppet Dreary Doll for some future turn, or for this Junk Puppet that is rotting away in our hand. We're going to get in for 3,000, put him kind of low, and then end our turn. Our opponent on their turn is going to go ahead and fire off this Red Eyes Insight. We are not going to negate it. We're going to negate the Red Eyes Fusion that comes afterwards, because then he can't activate another Insight. Let's take that, and wouldn't you know it, there's Breakthrough skill. Thankfully, we do have the Vanity set, so we can still prevent the Fusion Summon from occurring, and now I'm feeling pretty good. I don't think he can get over any of my cards without, like, a Mystical Space Typhoon or anything. I mean, I could just kill him, probably, except, wouldn't you know it, I draw Dreary Doll, and I think, well, this is actually a lot more fun than just sitting under Vanities for several turns. Let's trade in. We draw a Gimmick Puppet Nightmare and another trade-in, incredible, and then we're going to use our Fortress's effect to send this Gimmick Puppet Nightmare to the graveyard. It immediately gets solemned, and I'm looking at lethal. This is 3,000 damage, and I have access to a couple of Xyz. Let's go ahead and summon this Dreary Doll by her own effect, then play Junk Puppet to get another Gimmick Puppet from our graveyard, overlay into Strings, because remember, it has to be a Gimmick Puppet in this specific instance, and start attacking. We're going to hit that, and then get in for lethal, but wouldn't you know it, there's Red Eyes Spirit, bringing back Red Eyes Flare. I'll just wait until next turn, I suppose. Our opponent draws and has no outs. So our second game, we're up against some kind of shenanigans. I mean, you see zombies and malicious in the same deck, and you start itching a little bit. We have an okay hand, but doesn't really have a way to make a rank 8 turn 1. We can just play Machina like it's 2013 again. Let's go ahead and get this Fortress to our hand, use its effect, send this awful, awful Gimmick Puppet to the graveyard to set up a Junk Puppet play in a eventual turn where he clears our entire board and we're able to summon Magnet Doll. We're going to set these 2 cards, one of which is the ever-powerful Vanity's Emptiness, and pass it back. So our opponent's going to Destiny draw, send this Malicious, and as soon as he banishes it, I'm like, ooh, it's Vanity's time. Now this game becomes, how long do I think I can sit on this Vanities and live? I'm not really itching to trade in, because I would really prefer to just sit on a Vanities versus a Malicious deck. I can't imagine he has anything that gets over any of my monsters. He's going to set a Plague Spreader, just kind of doing the old set pass play here, and suddenly I realize I'm dangerously close to lethal. So I decide I'm a bit sick of sitting under Vanities. After he sets this Silent Lobby, I decide there's gotta, you know, probably be some amount of Yu-Gi-Oh! That gets played today. So during my turn, I'm going to fire off this Pot of Desires, go to, what, 7 cards in deck? Then this Vanities gets destroyed, of course. We'll special summon this Machina Cannon, and then Junk Puppet back one of those young Gimmick Puppet cards. We'll use Trade-In on our remaining Magnet Doll to draw 2 cards, and Allure of Darkness to draw an additional 2, and wouldn't you know, we're down to 3 cards in our deck. We summon this Hyretic Sun Dragon, Overlord of Heliopolis. As much as I want to go into Hope Harbinger, this is probably the better option here. Gonna blow this set card up and get in for lethal. So while the first 2 games went well, this is a bit of a grinder. We are playing against the pure Magispector deck that's playing like Ties of the Brethren. I think this card is incredibly cool and super good in this specific deck strategy, and I hope to see more of this in the future. He's going to go ahead and start with a Majesty's Pegasus and a Magispector Toad. Then he's going to get a Magispector Tempest, Ties of the Brethren for several more Magispectors. Here's Crow, here's Fox, get another copy of Tempest, and get a copy of, what is this, Cyclone? Seems okay. So we have a Cyclone and 2 Tempests to beat through. I feel like I might be able to do it. We're going to start with our Pot of Desires. Desires, banish 10 cards, and then get a Machina gear frame. I expect him to Tempest to this, and he does, so that's one out of the way. Let's go ahead and summon a Machina Fortress that was already in our hand. Here comes the second Tempest, and because I have a third monster in my hand, I can resummon that Machina Fortress one more time to get the Cyclone. So now we have a Solemn Strike, a Junk Puppet that is, you know, not on, but probably will be after we draw a million cards, and a Pot of Desires. So I'm actually feeling pretty good about this. He draws Eccentric and uses Crow in order to get Cyclone. Then he Majesty's Pegasus for a cat, and then during the end phase gets a Bunbuku. That seems okay, but maybe not good enough. Let's start off with Pot of Cupidity. He plays Maxi, and I go, shit. Well, I probably can still do stuff. I'm going to special summon this Machina Fortress and just give him one card. Try to attack just to get this Sonic out of the way, take a whole bunch of damage. That's fine, you know. Damage doesn't particularly matter in this high-skill Tier 1 matchup of Pure Magispectors versus Gimmick Puppet Rank 8s. He's going to summon Bunbuku, and as much as Solemn Strike sucks against this deck, I will Bunbuku Strike because, you know, not particularly excited to see Kieran make an appearance. So he's going to blow it up, use Majesty's Pegasus to get a cat, and then he is going to activate Cat's effect, then during the end phase get another Bunbuku. So I'm not feeling great about that. I kind of need to get these cards off the board. I draw for my third draw in a row, I believe, a Desires. Wouldn't you know it, we banished 20 cards and not a single copy of Pot of Desires. We're going to go ahead and use this Allure of Darkness. Trade in, Desires, Junk Puppet is not a particularly good hand, especially when we have exactly one puppet in the graveyard, and I think maybe one left in deck. Yeah, the best one too, Nightmare. So we're gonna go ahead and attack one of them. Here's the Tornado, of course, and he ends his turn. I don't think we have any possibility of winning this game, but that possibility is completely removed when I see him use Bunbuku to get not Kieran and then summon like a million monsters. I go, oh, I'm just dead, huh? He's going to go ahead and use Toad in order to get a copy of Magispector Tempest, and then make Acid Golem of Destruction for a devastating lethal attack. Ugh. So we're back with the deck. In the games we played on camera and the games off screen, I gotta say the deck didn't feel particularly powerful. That probably comes down to a lot of individual card choices, as well as the fact that Gimmick Puppets just aren't particularly good. Certainly the worst card in the deck in almost every game was Gimmick Puppet Nightmare. I think this should come out for either Schwarzschild Limit Dragon if you want to be, you know, a lot more all-in on the Make Hope Harbinger turn 1 idea, or Egghead if you want to be way more all-in on make sure my Gimmick Puppets are always able to special summon themselves and there's always fodder for Dreary Doll in the graveyard. If that's your angle, there needs to be a reason why you are playing Gimmick Puppets. Probably playing multiple copies of Gimmick Puppet of Strings and Giant Grinder is a better reason than just being able to barf out mediocre rank 8s. I liked the Machina package, but relying on a normal summon with both Gear Frame and Egghead is probably not exactly where I want to be. Having said that, the draw power in this deck is immense, and there's probably something there, at least as an engine in other rank 8 decks, but as it stands, this list did not perform up to expectations. So that's that. I hope you enjoyed watching me play a deck I closely identify with, because, you know, we both rely on gimmicks. I hope you enjoyed watching me try to not play my namesake card, Schwarzschild Limit Dragon, in a rank 8 deck. And most of all, I hope you just enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to give me a like, a comment, or a subscribe. It really helps me out. And if you want to see me play the decks I make on this show on stream, I'm on Twitch intermittently and scheduled. Link is in the description, but it's twitch.tv/monobluetron. Finally, if there is a certain deck or archetype you want to see me play in a future episode of this show, let me know in the comment section below, and I will do my best to accommodate you. Otherwise, I'll see you Tuesday. Happy holidays.